Good afternoon and welcome to the Draper's webcast, Personalization, What Really Works and What Doesn't, in association with personalization software provider Sailthru. Today we're going to be discussing how, as personalization has shot straight to the top of the retail agenda, what are the methods that have really worked and had the most traction, and what have perhaps not had as great an impact on retailers' businesses, and how those strategies are going to need to develop in the coming years. Now, today's webcast is completely interactive, so we're going to encourage you to send in your questions throughout. You'll notice a small field at the bottom of the screen where you can submit your questions, send it in. Please make it short and snappy, so don't write War and Peace, and I'll put it to our panel and get your answer as quick as possible. We're going to be running for an hour, so please do send questions throughout. Now, I'm joined by an expert panel today who include Ross Gowland, who's VP for EMEA at Sailthru, Erica Vilkels, who's CEO at East, and Finn Christo, who's Group E-commerce Conversion Rate Optimization Manager at M. Brown Group. Now, so as I say, personalisation has shot straight to the top of the retail agenda over the last few years. So, Erica, I'll put this first question to you.
Sure.
In your opinion, what are the hallmarks of a great customer experience online?
So I think the great customer experience really starts with getting the basics right. So before you get to personalisation, you need a site that's speedy. It needs to be easy to navigate. It needs to be an easy shopping experience, a basket experience. There need to be contacts on there, be they online or a person they can call. So I think you need to get all of those right before you actually then start looking at the personalisation, which you can then move on to greeting the customer as they come on, offering them preferences, etc. So it's all about, to me, getting the basics right so that they're happy to shop on you, have an easy experience, tell their friends about it. It was really easy to shop on that website. Oh, and actually, they've got these other great things as well.
Right, okay. And Finn, obviously you're at a women's wear business too, largely at M. Brown Group. So does that chime with your experience within your business?
Absolutely. It's all about getting the core experience right, and then building up on top of that as well. So we're all about fit that flatters, and that's what we strive to do, and make sure that we can do that from the get-go on every single touch point with the customer. Personalization starts to come after that, after we've got the journey right from the start.
Right. And obviously, Ross, at Sailthru, personalisation is what you do day in, day out. So what's your opinion on that when you're talking to retailers? What would you advise them?
I'd probably agree with the guys that have been talking. I think initially you've got to get your house in order to a point. So if I look at it from me as a customer myself, I'm looking for a frictionless experience on site. So anything that can offer me the ability to find what I'm looking for quickly, and then anything that's going to offer me some contextual relevance, I'll be happy, and I'll probably be a loyal customer moving forward, and then you can start to layer on top of that.
Right, okay. And based off the back of that, what do you think what types of personalisation do you think the customer really values when looking at perhaps some of the businesses that you've worked with? Perhaps not naming any names if you can't. Yeah.
Well, so again, if I take it a step back for me as a customer, so when I'm engaging with a brand on site, one of the things I guess that really frustrates me is when they're just trying to sell me something all the time. It's just a constant send, whether or not it's an email, whether or not it's a mobile push notification or anything like that. I think for me, my brand loyalty goes to organisations that are willing to have a value exchange with me. So yes, depends where I am in the purchase cycle. But ultimately for me, it's going to be very much a case of, can you show me something that's of relevance, contextually relevant, and can you share something that's actually going to provide a little bit more value, so a bit more content perhaps in terms of research.
Right, okay. And Finn, you're obviously working in this field, very much focused on it. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where we've started from is anonymous personalization, where we might not necessarily know everything there is to know about the customer, but there is a digital footprint there that we can work off, be IP address, whether or not you've bought from us before, what kind of device you're on, and we've started to work from that basis on kind of being able to personalize the experience on those basic blocks. Right. And then as we dig deeper, we start to go and look at transactional data. We look at categories viewed, categories purchased, recommendations as well. So we start off with a very basic kind of get the journey right, then the core basics of personalization. Who are you? And then as we start to progress, we start to dig a little bit deeper as well.
Right, okay. And Erica at East, you're more at the beginning of your personalisation journey, aren't you? So how are you approaching it? And from that approach, what do you think what are you expecting or anticipating your customer will value?
So I think on the personalisation side, we're in our infancy on the digital side, but from a store's perspective, we're probably quite advanced. So our sales staff have been with us a long time. They know our customers. They know their preferences. So there's a wealth of knowledge actually within the store. So now what we're working on is, how do we put that in place for online? And it's about also being appropriate. So our customers in general aren't the millennials. So they're not used to having their preferences, things they like on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those types of things. They don't share as easily as younger people do. So it's how do we make that approach? It's not quite so easy in terms of gathering data. So we'll have a kind of soft approach to it. We're planning things like preferences. But what we need to be very careful of is not getting too creepy. Right. So they don't want to feel like they're being stalked or we know too much about them because they're of an age group, 40s and 50s, who are more private than the younger people.
Right, so we don't want a 1984 situation happening, basically.
No.
Okay, good stuff. So this brings us to the crux of the issue of today's theme, which is what has really worked and what hasn't. So Finn, in your experience, what has really worked for your business in terms of personalisation?
So in terms of a very specific example where we know you've come onto the website, you've looked at a category, but you haven't purchased from us, and then you come back, what we'll try and do is we'll alter the navigation, the homepage, the creative, and certain interstitials throughout the journey to kind of say, you know what, let's carry on that journey that you've had. And that is very basic, bare bones personalisation. Where we've seen a less effective kind of approach is where we've looked at maybe product affinities. We know that you've purchased a dress on your first visit and shoes on your second, so we can predict that you probably want to buy accessories on your third visit. And I think there's been a little bit, not so much resistance, but customers don't like being told what to buy. So what we've had to do is kind of understand where that line is and make sure that we're more of a concierge service where we can help. We can deliver a certain degree of joy to the experience, but at the same time, we're not trying to be overly prescriptive as well.
Right, okay. Ross, obviously you've worked with a multitude of businesses in this respect. What do you think has the best traction? What methods?
So I'd probably add on top of that. So I think what's interesting, it depends obviously what channel the individuals are engaging. Most of us these days, we engage with brands through a variety of different channels. So organisations that we work with, the ones that do really well, are the ones that are sort of capturing all of that data across all those different channels, pulling it together, and then being able to leverage that rich data asset to then make it actionable. I guess a good example of being able to personalise, probably not at the at that particular level when we're talking about product recommendations, but actually utilising what we call personalised send time from an email communication. So that is a simple way of being able to, instead of hitting the button from a CRM perspective and everything going out at the same time, is just ensuring that you can communicate out to the individual customer at the time that they're most likely to open and engage that email, as an example.
Right.
And they see great results off the back of that. I think one of our customers saw a 72% increase in conversion off the back of just that alone.
Right. So it's about getting customer right at the right time.
It's the old adage that people have talked about for a very long time. It's not really rocket science. It's just about being able to give relevant content and products at a time that's most appropriate through the right channel that's appropriate to the individual consumer.
Right, yeah.
And just on that as well, and to kind of build on what's been said previously as well, I think as marketers we've all been personalising to a certain extent, either through paper or through the store. I think it's now as the kind of the technology starts to evolve to a point where we can do it in a digital capacity. That's where, this is why we're having this conversation today, that we're able to kind of look at some of the resources that we have and the data that we have, and then personalise on top of that as well.
Right, okay. And then for Erica, at your business, obviously, as you say, you're more at the beginning of that. Yeah. Are there any types of personalisation that you have been doing initially that you've been seeing an effect from, or?
Mainly from our store staff, so not so much. So obviously we're planning on the internet, but we're taking an awful lot of information from the stores. So we gather data from stores and online. So we are gathering customer data. What we're not good at the moment, which we need a tool for, is how do we data mine that information? How do we pull it out and actually make that useful from an analytics point of view. And also then we're trying to empower the store staff from a clienteling point of view, the personalisation from them. So we want it in both places, in all channels, so that we've got one view of the customer.
Right, okay. So on that note of what's worked well, Finn, you touched on a couple of things that haven't been so impactful. Is there anything else that you found along the sort of personalisation journey at M. Brown Group have perhaps fallen by the wayside because they haven't really had that impact?
I think everything's had an impact. It's just that the more anonymous personalisation has given us a better return on investment for the time. And again, anything that we do that moves towards that prescriptive approach to personalisation, again, it has an impact, but it's very minimal. So what we're doing is trying to understand better exactly what it is that our customers want and then serve that better in a much better way. I mean, personalisation means that we can have a much better product-based conversation with customers. I think at the same time, though, we're a business. We're trading extremely hard. We have a core, user journey that we're improving and trying to develop as well. So the personalisation, I'm not saying it's the least important thing on the table, but at the same time, we've got so many other things happening at the same time that there's only so many hours in the day that we can give it. So we're going after the big wins. Right.
Okay. So, and that brings me on to my next point. So you mentioned the big wins. So what is your end goal, and as it currently stands, for your company in terms of offering a truly personalised experience? What is the end goal, and what role does marketing as well play in it? Do you work very closely with them?
I think the end goal is to be able to speak to our customers on a one-to-one basis, and that would be absolutely fantastic because it gives us a lot more time, it gives us a lot more real estate to marketing. That would be where we're working towards, but again, we have to take these baby steps slowly. There's a cultural change in attitude that has to come along with that as well. We need to make sure that everybody understands that the curated marketing material, the assets that we've got, aren't necessarily going to be seen by everybody. It could be that we put something out on the homepage and it isn't necessarily going to be seen by everyone in the traditional sense because either an algorithm or an experience or a personalised approach means that something else is going to take its place as well. So there's a conversation to be had there as well.
At Sailthru, Ross, when you're talking to retailers about what they can achieve and what the end goal might look like, what does that conversation look like?
I think it's difficult for retailers because, to Finn's point, you've got to start here and then get to there, and there's that bit in between as well. So it's not a case of going from 0 to 100 miles an hour. I think you have to help. So, I mean, I guess a good example of that would be Just Fab, which is a customer of Sailthru. So part of that journey was very much they started with sending email at a different time of day for each individual consumer. They saw some benefits from that. And then as they were getting these little wins, they started to develop. So then they had the behavioural recommendations in the email. Then they connected the email to the on-site experience. And now they're moving towards the utilisation of predicting what an individual is going to buy before they actually go there. So they've had some great success in terms of results. And I think overall, in terms of for organisations, I think it's a difficult one because, again, going to Finn's point, the guys are trading really hard and it's all about that short-term revenue. But at the same time, you've got to look at the long-time customer lifetime value of the individuals that you're spending a lot of money on to acquire in the first instance. So it's just helping brands get those wins and give them a very clear path of how they're actually going to achieve that. But at the same time being in a situation where we're actually supportive of consumers and how we want to engage with brands as well. So, yeah.
And Erica, of course, again, at the beginning of the journey, but do you have, when you're having, your internal meetings and strategy discussions around personalisation, is there an end goal that you visualise?
Yes, so we're a very individualistic brand and our customers are very individualistic. So I think it works well for us to be aiming to provide individual outfits, ranges, recommendations for them. They're used to getting this in the store, and I think, one of the challenges is making the web as good as the store, because when you go to a store, you've got that experience, speaking to a person. How do you then replicate that online? It's very important. We're also very keen to have the conversation coming the other way as well. So from a merchandising point of view, when we're planning, we would now be using customer data as much as we'd be using analysis, and I think that's a real change in terms of there's a two flow of information, and the information we're getting back is massively valuable.
Right, of course.
I think I would just add to that. I think a lot of organisations view personalisation as a tactic rather than a strategy. I would actually challenge organisations that they need to consider it more as a strategy overall, and get a lot of buy-in from across the different departments, be it customer service or wherever it may be, and actually focus on a personalisation strategy for the business to ensure that long-term growth and profitability for the company.
Right, absolutely.
Just to talk about that long-term growth as well, I mean, we have generations being brought up now on curated content. Yep. You've got your Netflix, your Spotify, your Apple Music, where there's an algorithmic decision behind the content that we're showing you. So I think, in 5-10 years' time, it's going to be almost archaic to have to go onto a website and dig through it to find what you want. This can only be the start of moving towards that ideal.
Right, of course. And I'd just like to take this moment to remind our audience that we are fully interactive today. So if you've got a question, now's the time to ask it. We've got our expert panel on hand, who no doubt will be dying to answer your questions. So do send them in. We're about 15 minutes in, so you might have just joined. But as I say, you can submit a question. You'll see a field at the bottom of the screen. Send it in and we'll ask away. So one of the questions our audience are probably dying to know is personalisation, big topic in retail at the moment. But it seems like a lot of businesses are very much on the road to achieving true personalisation. So just to put that question to you, obviously it sounds like at M Brown Group you're quite far down the road with your strategy. So what stage of that end goal strategy are you currently at, would you say?
In all honesty, I'd love to be a lot further down the road than it sounds. We're still at the very beginning of our journey. We're still trying to understand who our customers are, where they're interacting with us, how they're interacting with us. And then the personalisation, maybe not so much a tactic, but is just trying to make that experience better. Yeah. I think the predictive algorithms that we've been using to change the homepage based on who you are, where you are, how you're interacting with us has been pretty cutting edge. Right. We're very proud of that work as well. All we need to do now is just kind of really think and invest a lot more time and effort into using that potential. There's almost unlimited power there that we can go after. So we just need to find more hours in the day, to be honest.
Right. Okay. And it is around that issue of hours in the day and perhaps skills within the business. What are the biggest challenges? Is it that time?
I think it would be time, if I'm honest. The skills are there. All the teams are bought in. But at the same time, like you said, we're trading. We have to make sure that we're selling. We have to make sure that we're delighting our customers with the core journey. And then after that, we can start to personalise.
Right, okay. And for Erica, as a business that's newer to it, what are those challenges for your business at an earlier stage of the journey? It's
at the moment it's data, so it's getting the data out and actually making the data useful information so people can actually start working with it. So although we're at the start of the journey, we're planning all sorts of different things, and we have got a wealth of experience because we've been very much a bricks and mortar store with a website, but we've got a very loyal staff and they know the people so well. Mm-hmm. My challenge very much is the in-store experience is fantastic. How do I make that the same? So we might not go down the full gamut of technology, and if we've got a chat, it might be a live chat rather than not a live chat, right. Or it might be bringing customer service into that. So we've got a mixture of real people and all the different preferences and everything else we're showing them. Our customers will move at a slower rate, and I think in most retailers I've talked to, where we're in retailers rushing ahead, our customers aren't necessarily quite at the same pace as us either. So although we're probably a little bit behind, our customers are probably further behind as well. So it's getting them to understand that this is a great experience, not a creepy experience. And we're helping them by not trawling through loads of pages of clothes that they don't want, and we're actually giving them the service online that they already get in stores.
Right. Of course, I always think with personalisation as well, if it's done well, they'll just see it as great service.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yes, it should be seamless and invisible. They shouldn't feel like they're having something done to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so to deliver a truly personalised customer experience, what level of alignment is needed between marketing and other departments? And Ross, you obviously work with a lot of businesses. What's your view on that?
I think it's an interesting one because we obviously talk to a lot of brands about that, and you'll have marketing having these great visions about where they want to take the business, but you then get to a conversation with perhaps IT or something along those lines, and perhaps the two different departments haven't had a conversation prior to that, or they're not quite on the same page. And I think certainly that would be my advice for anyone that's thinking about trying to leverage personalisation, is make sure that you know, you've got all teams bought in to what you're ultimately trying to achieve from a one goal perspective as a brand.
Right. Do you have all teams bought in, Erica?
Yeah, so I think, you know, all the customer facing teams are the ones with the vision. They're the ones that are kind of, this is what the customer wants. They're talking to the customers, and they're realising that vision from a strategic point of view. And then we see IT as the people that need to deliver the technical solution to be able to get to that data, to be able to get to those ratings and reviews, etc. So they do have to be aligned. I see them as doing two slightly different things. So one's providing the vision and one's providing the implementation of that. But they do need to very much understand what that vision is, you know, whilst we're looking for different tools.
Right. What about Brown, Finn?
I'd like to say that I'd like to think that we're all aligned. We have buy-in. We have some very passionate e-commerce brand teams. We have an extremely talented e-commerce development team as well. It's, again, everyone understands and everyone's bought into creating this great experience for our customers. That's all we want at the end of the day. How we go about that, we have to prioritise things. We have to make sure that resources put in the right place. So. Yes, so very much so about the alignment, but still, we have other things to get on with as well.
Right, okay. And which department has primary responsibility for your personalisation strategy?
So the CRM team in terms of the outgoing communications, and then my team, conversion rate optimization team, for the on-site experience.
Right.
And that split just means that we have to work even better and much more closely with each other to make sure that we're being consistent across those journeys.
Is that how it will sit at East?
Yeah, so it's e-commerce, CRM together, and then obviously working closely with IT, because we don't want 1,000 different tools. And I think, from a marketing perspective and going to lots of shows and looking at all the things you can do, it's very easy to get carried away with the technology, and we just need to pull that back and make sure that the technology we use is appropriate for what we're doing, because we could go too far.
Right, okay. And, yeah.
I was just going to say, I think, we're seeing chief customer officers appear on a regular basis now across a lot of different brands. So I think CEOs and boards recognise that it's important to have probably one individual that's ultimately responsible for it all, to be able to pull the rest of the different departments together on that. So it's a good thing, I would say, but I think it's also a challenge as well, not getting away from that.
Right, okay. Daily challenge for everyone, it seems.
I think so.
Okay. Erica, on the East website at the moment, how are you currently personalising content?
I'd say we're very much at the start of the journey, and we are moving from one platform to another. So in terms of what is on there at the moment, yes, we'll greet people and you can chat to people, and we do reviews. So it's really quite a basic point. But we are encouraging the review side of things, so we're getting people almost ready to say as we move forward and we start to curate ranges, because we don't curate at the moment and we don't have the facility to do that. Almost lead them on that journey of what to expect. And what we're doing is also asking them what they want from us. So as we're developing things, what's important to them? We've talked about what works and what doesn't work, and we're engaging in our customers of what do they want from us, as we're putting this site together.
Okay. What are some of the really key pieces of personalisation you're doing?
Two that come to mind. One is localization, where based on your IP, we'll make sure that either a local store or the click and collect facility is much more evident on the homepage navigation. Another one is just an understanding that our customers are maybe browsing through the site and they get interrupted. Either it's the kids, the phone, or any number of things. So being able to come back to the journey, and what we'll do is we'll very subtly bring out the category that you're looking at and put that in the navigation, so you don't have to dig as deep next time. And that's been absolutely fantastic on mobile.
Right, okay, so again, simplifying that journey basically for the customer. Ross, at Sailthru, are there any particular types of content personalisation you're seeing your customers really focusing on?
Well, I think certainly from an on-site perspective, there's a number of different areas. So obviously you've got the home page, and I think going back to what Finn was talking about with anonymous users, for a lot of brands, that's the big area. Obviously, you've got a lot more anonymous users than known users. So we have the ability to help customers doing that. If you look at brands, well-known brands like Netflix and Amazon, they've been doing it for a very long time across multiple different channels. So it is possible. And I think it's showing brands a way in which they can go. But then if you bring it back to the actual on-site experience and going from just the homepage and taking into account, for instance, the source of where those anonymous users have come from, and then looking at down to the product pages themselves, or in basket, you've got different sort of personalisation that's taking place in those different areas. So there's a whole raft of capabilities that are available to commerce organisations similar to Sailthru and other companies alike.
Right, okay. And of course, one thing we write about Drapers all the time, and it's been the big dominant retail trend for the last however long I've been at Drapers, it's been 6-7 years now, is multi-channel and this idea of everything being connected and seamless. Finn, how well joined up is your personalisation strategy across channels?
I think we can do that a lot better. Again, traditionally, because we were a catalogue company, that data is there. We've been able to personalise on that basis. I think the digital side of that needs to catch up. And obviously, our team is there, and we're doing as much as we can, as fast as we can. But I think we've still got areas there where we need to make sure that we're a lot more joined up across the channels.
Right. Okay. So, Ross, one of the things that we speak about a lot at Drapers when it comes to personalisation strategy is the difference between segmentation and personalisation. How do you differentiate between the two? And in what channels or applications does your approach to personalisation get to the individual level, for example, where they receive a much more curated experience?
Yeah, so I guess we're quite lucky in terms of the clients that use us. So our premise is to be able to deliver that true one-to-one level experience, but I think you also have to bear in mind that the ones that do it really well, brands, are the ones that actually leverage a true one-to-one capability, but at the same time take a look at a segment level as well. So, we're capturing a huge amount of data across different channels, and I think that's one of the big challenges that a lot of brands have, is just being able to make that data actionable. A lot of the companies have the data, but they might be in a bit of a tangled web with legacy technologies and whatnot. And so I think, for a new technology like Sailthru, we enable brands to be able to make that actionable in an easier way. So, yeah, certainly one-to-one level you can provide. So if you've got a campaign, let's say, of 3 million people in that, 3 million people will get 3 million different types of content personalised. But at the same time, you can segment and leverage that off that individual profile that we're capturing. So that can be implicit, explicit data, it could be geographic data, it could be absolutely any data, third-party data, social data pulled into it, and then being able to target appropriately at any given time, depending on what the CRM team are trying to achieve.
Right, okay. Anna M. Brown Group, Finn.
You're going to have to repeat the question. Sorry.
It's a really long question.
Yeah, well, it was long to read as well. How do you differentiate between segmentation and personalisation? And in what channels does your personalisation approach get to really down to the individual level, or does it?
So our segmentation is very much how our business, our marketing aligns to our business objectives. Once we have those segments, then we start to personalise towards them. So in terms of our approach, it will be what kind of device you're on. And if it's on a device, what is your action? What does the customer want? Not every single person on mobile wants to purchase. And so we work off that hypothesis. We start off with that chunk, and then we work down into smaller chunks. So mobile, new, returning, and then we look at where they've come from in terms of is it paid traffic? Is it returning customers? And then we go down even further. We look at affiliates, and it starts off from that very kind of wide funnel, and then we work our way downwards.
Right. Okay. Erica, like M. Brown Group, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got a slightly older customer. Will you still segment
Yes, I think we do exactly what you've just described. We do that already. And what we have found is that there's lots of preconceptions about people might be a bit older, which aren't actually true. So we found that an awful lot of our customers, mixture, as you say, that some are browsing, some are actually shopping. A lot of them are on their iPads. They're not sitting on a laptop or a PC like they might have done in the past. They're probably not on a phone yet, though. So we're watching that journey as it happens. We will be optimised for every device. And it's how do we encourage somebody to move from browsing to shopping, and how can we leverage that? But it's at the moment, as I say, we are in the infancy, but we have got segmented information, not so much individualistic information. And I think what we'd have to figure out is the benefit enough to go down to the individual level? And I think we'll do that through analysis of those segments to see whether it's actually worth doing. Right. It probably is, but we don't necessarily know yet.
Right, well, time will tell.
Time will tell.
And on that note, just a reminder to our audience, we're now just over halfway through today's webcast. So if you would like to submit a question to our panel, they'll no doubt be eager to answer. So please do send in. You'll see a field at the bottom of the screen where you can submit your question and send it across. So please do send in. I can see that the questions have been flooding in. So we've got a very active audience today who are dying to ask questions. So we'll start with Morgan. So Morgan would like to know, how do you best utilise mobile, web and app to personalise? So bit of a broad question. I'm going to throw the gauntlet to you, Finn.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
I think the very key part of that is what people are trying to achieve. If you're on the app, if you're on a mobile device, if you're surfing in your lunch break on your work computer, what is it you're trying to achieve in that very short amount of time? I think we're also at a very interesting part where, I don't know about anybody else, but I have my mobile phone with me at all times. We don't necessarily bring our laptops into the bathroom, but we do bring our mobile devices. And Draper, I do.
That's a terrible thing.
Mobile, not on my laptop. I don't take my mobile. I take my mobile. I don't take my laptop into the bathroom. But sorry,
it could be.
We're surprised by both of those things, to be honest.
It's a bit of an overshare there.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that true personalization, there is an exchange of information between us as a retailer and then the customer, and just having a device that you can take with you throughout your day, from the moment you wake up until you go to bed. There's an incredible amount of information on there, and different mind states as well throughout that day. So it's starting with that question of what is the customer, what is our visitor trying to achieve, is the best way to start, whether it be web, laptop, or on app. And I'm very surprised you don't take your mobile phones into the bathroom. I can't be the only one.
No, definitely not.
Wow.
It's in my handbag.
So, Morgan, not Morgan, what would you say to... We're answering your question. So, Ross, what would you say to Morgan on that note?
Well, I think from our perspective, so again, our clients are fortunate in the sense that they can leverage this one single platform to be able to communicate on the different devices. So that's a bonus for them, obviously, and then being able to link it together. The data's the important bit, and then if you think about the mobile and what you're actually trying to achieve on the mobile, I mean, from our perspective, we can personalise the content and the products, again, down to an individual level on mobile. We can also give the ability for in-app message stream communication in addition to the push notifications as well. Right. So there's a huge amount what they can do, and I think it's just a case of determining what you're trying to achieve as a business and then being able to provide that relevant experience for the consumer in terms of what they're interested in trying to do with you. And
I think, again, it's kind of almost being appropriate as well.
It is, very appropriate.
From an app point of view, we would probably want a pull rather than a push out of information, because our customers wouldn't necessarily want to be things pushed on them, but if we get them to pull, then that's probably the way we do it.
I mean, let's be honest, mobile is probably the most personal communication channel that we have. To Finn's point, we take it pretty much everywhere, so... it's a case of being contextually relevant and ensuring that you can get a means of being able to communicate in an appropriate way. You don't want to keep buzzing people every 5 seconds, because that will switch them off very quickly. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good stuff. Well, hopefully that's answered your question, Morgan. Perhaps you've been busy taking notes, or perhaps you'll watch on demand, as you'll be able to after today. So our next question comes in from David. David would like to know, who are the UK retailers that the panel see as being the most advanced in terms of personalisation? So just to put that to you, are there any businesses you look to and you're inspired by what they're doing with personalisation?
I mean, Amazon's always the easiest for me because they've been doing it for longer. I'm more used to it, and their curation is actually very accurate. So I think where it goes wrong is when that curation is not that accurate, and you're thinking, why are you showing me these? Because not using the data correctly. And Net-a-Porter, I find it probably the obvious ones, really. I've nipped in first with those ones, because it's accuracy to me. If you're going to create something, it needs to be accurate.
Right, of course. There's a lot of room to misstep, isn't there? You don't feel...
Yeah, so why would I buy any of those? No.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you look to anyone?
I'm going to copy your answer.
Feel free.
Sorry, I'm going to say Amazon as well. I think where Amazon falls short is, I recently bought an Alexa unit. I'm still having that marketing message pushed to me, even though I've already made the purchase. And,
right.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
That can get a little bit annoying. That's an incredible amount of real estate on the Amazon homepage that is being taken up by that banner. They know I've made that purchase. There's other things that you could sell me. But other than that, I think Amazon is the go-to.
Right. And Ross, of course, you're in this field day in, day out.
I think, for me, if I'm honest, do I think anyone does it really, really well? I'm challenged on that to answer it. I think ASOS do a pretty decent job of it, certainly in terms of connecting the channels as well. John Lewis, I think most people like John Lewis in terms of the customer experience that they have. But I'd probably say it's easier for new, young companies because they're starting without the legacy. And I think, you've also got the addition of politics internally within organisations where they've made significant investments, and it's hard to sometimes pull back from that. But, that's probably a long-winded answer to the question.
Right.
No one.
Well, I think ASOS do a pretty decent job, but I wouldn't sort of call out anyone specifically as a shining star.
Right. Okay. Well, no doubt David enjoyed that answer. Absolutely. So the next question comes in from Kat. Kat would like to know, Finn, you've talked about personalising the homepage and taking baby steps to personalise a website. With this being at the very start of the journey, With this being at the very start of the journey, so do you think there are bigger gains to personalising elements towards the end of the funnel in the checkout, for example?
I think something that would be really interesting to see, and we've talked about internally but haven't really approached yet, is first order discounts and delivery discounts, where we've maybe brought you into the website based off a category-based discount and then a delivery offer as well, and be able to understand, are you more likely to convert based on a X amount of purchase or free delivery or free shipping. Right. It's not something that we've actioned, it's just something that we've talked about. I think that is probably one example that I could point to. Right,
okay. And Ross, would you agree with that?
I think there's that, but I would actually say, again, if you're looking at the lifetime customer value of consumers, when someone's offering me a discount all the time, and there's a number of brands that are constantly doing that, you're being trained to shop in a particular way. And actually some of the conversations I'm having with retailers today, there is seemingly an opinion where they want to pull back from offering those discounts to ensure that their profits and margins are at the levels that they want to be. So it's a challenge for organisations, but I think certainly in terms of that, you could look at, again, other product recommendations within that particular area to look at increasing average order values as an example.
Right, okay. Erica,
yeah, I mean, yes, we do find if we do something towards the end, which is specifically for new customers, then offer them a discount off the next time they purchase. We have huge success with that type of thing.
Right, okay.
But we're looking more towards loyalty programs and different kinds of rewards that aren't discount orientated. So there might be a very personalised loyalty to that person who likes a certain type of event that we could get them to go to. So rather than perpetually discounting, we want to be full price, but still offer our customers an experience of some description, which suits the brand and which suits them.
Right, okay, indeed. Okay, well, we've had an interesting question come in from Jacqueline. Jacqueline would like to know, is virtual reality, augmented reality and artificial intelligence likely to change the buying experience for millennials or across generations? And what are you doing in this space? And do you have the skills?
Wow, what a question.
Quite. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Nothing of note.
I can safely say it's nothing that we're currently looking at right now. In terms of internal blue sky meetings that we've had, we have looked at augmented reality. We have 15 brands. Many of those brands sell homeware. How great would it be to choose your sofa and have it, displayed in your living room and see how it would look like with the rest of your decor. But right now, these are all thought exercises.
Right, of course.
But yeah, that would be a great thing to go after.
Right. Okay. What do you think, Ross, as a personalisation expert?
So again, I might sort of pour cold water on that a little bit. I think 90% of the conversations that we have with brands, I think they're not ready for that. And in terms of AI, frankly, AI is being utilised already a few years back. I mean, Sailthru uses predictive analytics internally within it and leverages it quite successfully. So I think a lot of it is buzzwords. I think people try and get really excited about certain things, but I think actually having the foundation and the building blocks in place is probably will serve brands well over the long term for sure.
Okay, absolutely. Erica, do you have any views on that?
Yes, we've discussed it as well. How fabulous would it be to have an East World where you can meet your friends and go shopping and all those types of things? And I think whilst it sounds exciting and nice, I'd probably weigh up the benefit and effort and cost of actually doing that. And actually, would that give us more than just a nice personalised experience for somebody who's feeling special about themselves? Maybe not, but maybe we're just a few years off it and we're not quite caught up yet. Right. But I think it's there for everybody to talk about. I think at the moment we need to catch up on, and the customers need to catch up on where we are anyway.
Right, okay. So that's obviously a very future-looking question, so thanks for that, Jacqueline, challenging our panel here. But taking it back to the now, what are the common mistakes that you see companies making when beginning the personalisation journey? So perhaps I won't just ask you that one now, Erica, you're about to begin it yourself.
I'll learn from the answers.
But Finn, perhaps at M. Brown.
To be honest, I'm going to take my cue from Erica. It is very much about being creepy. We have an incredible amount of data about a customer, and just being able to not go full throttle and absolutely freak them out by hey Finn, welcome back to the site. You last purchased this. We saw you were looking at this kind of thing. Those are still marketing messages, but it's very much an extremely hard sell. So. I mean, I'm personally turned off by any kind of overtly creepy messaging that I get from any other brands as well. Right. So again, it is very much light touch more than anything else.
Right. So don't be creepy.
Don't be creepy is the message. Today. Yeah.
I don't think you want to be sitting watching your television and getting a retailer saying how you're enjoying the football, do you?
No,
absolutely. Far too far.
I'll be honest. There is a part of me that would be actually really excited by that. Right. But again, it's
it's obtrusive.
It is very much so.
Ross, what are some of the common mistakes you see?
I'm going to say the same as the rest of the guys. I think it is just a case of good personalisation is when something just feels natural and someone's putting something that's of value to me. The world is speeding up. Everyone, from a consumer perspective, has less time on their hands, seemingly. So any ability to ensure that you can offer relevant content or product and make it as frictionless as possible for us as consumers is probably going to be a win-win, and will ensure that the brand is kept top of mind over the long term.
Right. Okay. So Paul would like to know, do you personalise post-purchase, particularly for large orders, when users may experience purchase guilt? Not quite sure what that is, but it exists apparently. Do you do that, Finn?
No, it would be a great thing to do. I'm just trying to think of purchase guilt. If there's anything that I've done, buying at 3 o'clock in the morning and then regretted it the day after. But we use a very positive copy in our online journey. We're very much about celebrating fit. And we've seen some great reactions to that in our usability testing and in our UX lab as well. In terms of assuaging guilt, that's about as far as we've gone.
Right. Okay. Well, hopefully that answers your question, Paul, because I assume at East...
We don't have any guilty customers.
Exactly. Guilt-free at East. There's the...
Guilt-free and low returns. So.
Absolutely. Good place to be. Rightio. So, to what degree do you feel you could advance your approach to personalisation in individual channels as it relates to delivering a unique experience for individuals as they move from channel to channel? Long question. What do you think, Ben?
Still trying to process that question. I think automation is probably the way to go with that one. And again, just to go back to an earlier point, as the digital capacity evolves and develops, it is very much going to be just the case of, you mentioned 3 million customers before, being able to market to them on a one-to-one basis. It's going to have to go down the automation route and trying to understand that as a business, we have these sources of data across the business, being able to join them up and then feed them into that automation is probably the next way to go.
Right, okay, brilliant. The audience questions are still flooding in. If you'd like to ask a question, please do send in your thoughts. We're still on air for another 15 minutes, just under. So now's your chance to ask a very insightful question and get an equally insightful answer from our expert panel. Ross, how can businesses measure the impact of personalisation in marketing and across the business?
So I think, so again, going back to the part of the conversation that we were having before, a lot of it is short term, so it's campaign level driven. Our view is slightly different. So I think in terms of looking at how successful you can be with your customers that you've invested a lot of money in acquiring in the first place, it's about looking at the longitudinal view of how you're doing against that. Ultimately, it's customer lifetime value for me is the best way in which you can determine how things are going on that level. Okay.
Is that how you're measuring the impact?
To be honest, we're still very much a traditional way of measuring because we're on a experience by experience basis. The traditional KPIs, bounce, conversion, AOV, they still resonate within the business. On top of that, though, there is an educational piece. And again, to repeat myself from before, we have to make people understand that because you're on mobile, you're not necessarily going to buy on your second order, for example. Maybe you're trying to track your delivery. Maybe you want to find a bit of content that we've got on there. Maybe you have a question that's in the FAQs. There's nothing that we could do, no amount of discounting that we could do to make you buy on that second visit. So there's an approach there that we have to kind of temper with those traditional KPIs.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, certainly a nurture element in there as well, for sure. But yeah, I mean, the key KPIs are always going to be there for all the retailers. So.
Right. I think conversion will never go away, really, as a measure, really. And when we're looking at targeting campaigns, we'll be measuring the conversion of the control group against the targeted people, just making sure that whatever we're doing is actually putting more money in the till. So it can't just be all of this are nice to have. So it's nice from a brand value point of view for customers to feel special, but it does need to translate into increases in ATV.
Okay. So one of the really big issues, pressing issues for fashion brands and retailers that I'm told about as a journalist at Draper's all the time is in some cases, the lack of the required skills or knowledge to really implement a personalisation strategy, to carry it out, particularly when you consider the amount of data that retailers are capturing across channels. Do you think that's a challenge for the industry, Ross?
I think across the board, I think retailers have got that challenge. But I think more importantly, it's also about the churn of your staff as well. If you lose experts in that particular field, it can sometimes be hard to replace them, and that can definitely slow down projects and things that they're trying to achieve over a certain given period of time. So, yeah, for sure, I think it's a big challenge for a lot of retailers.
Right. I think having so much data is also a challenge. So it's having the skill set of the people to actually sift through all of that and convert that into something usable. And yes, we can have nice programs with algorithms in that give us data, but we still need people to convert that into actions and what we're going to do about it.
Right. Okay.
There's just so much data; it's hard sifting through it.
Well, absolutely, we hear about that all the time as a challenge. And Finn, obviously, you're very much working in this area, aren't you? So, is it a challenge at M Brown as well?
I'd have to say no, if I'm honest, just because there's an incredible amount of investment on our staff in terms of training, development. We do a lot of workshopping. We do a lot of blue sky meetings where we literally just pick an idea and then just dissect it, and then try and take the learnings from there. We bring in a lot of experts. We interact with non-competing brands as well, who use maybe the same technologies as us, just to see what they're doing, and we will share that with them as well. And it's been a very interesting journey to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, again, going back to the churn issue, there is an investment there, and when people go, people go.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. So, we've spoken a lot today about some of the things that have worked, some of the things that haven't, some of the common mistakes you see in the industry. Based on your experience of what has worked and what hasn't, how will you be adapting your personalisation strategy going forward? So I'll start with you, Ross. How do you think that retailers should be adapting their personalisation strategy going forward?
Well, I think certainly once they've got the building blocks in place, I think the way in which things will begin to go is more around predictions of what individuals are going to do before they've actually done it. So what are they going to purchase? Are they actually going to engage with the communication that I'm trying to offer them? And we're beginning to see that filter through with some of the more advanced clients that we have on board, and starting to see some great results against their control groups as well. Because ultimately it's just about always testing and just being able to keep moving that needle forward one step at a time.
Right.
And that's something that we're definitely working on, which is we can show people curated collections of what we've already got, but we want to take it from the step before that, which is we're putting together ranges, and we want to get customer feedback before we actually do the buying. Right. So we can buy into winners, we can potentially reduce the markdown. So we're looking at that kind of technology to show customers beforehand, do they like it, do they not like it, and that will help influence our ranges going forward, and that they themselves will therefore become more individualistic and more personalised for people.
Right, okay. How are you going to be adapting your personalisation strategy then?
Again, I think we're in a slightly more enviable position because we have so much actionable data, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should be actioning every single piece of information that we have on our customers. So again, just to make sure that we're not being creepy, we are very much light touch, and we are trying to create an experience that is simple, usable, and delivers a certain degree of joy as well.
Right, okay. So the audience questions continue to flood in. We've got less than 10 minutes to go, so if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, now is the time. Please do send it in. You'll see a field just below the screen where you can submit your question to our expert panel. Okay, so we have another question from Ash, and he would like to know, have you come across issues where there are multiple personalisation campaigns running and it becomes difficult to measure the true value of each of the campaigns? So I'm going to put that to you, Ross. When you're talking, pleasure. When you're talking to some of your clients in market, can that be a challenge?
I've not experienced it to date, but I'm probably not the best person to ask. If you ask one of our customer success managers, they're probably better placed to answer that. Right. But certainly personally, I've not experienced it.
Okay. And what about at M. Brown?
So we, all of our personalisation experiences, they run against a mapping program that we have. So we make sure that there's a prioritised list, and then there's also no chance for two experiences to interact with each other or collide, basically. So we have we put a lot of effort into visualising what we're doing, not only for our own team, but also across the marketing team as well and the rest of the business. So at any point you can come up to the third floor and see exactly what we're doing that week and what's running. So we try really hard to make sure that the data that we have is as clean as possible.
Right, okay.
It's kind of key having it in one place, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So I can see it happening if you've got marketing department running one thing and then you've got web running another thing, and then they start to overlap. So
it's a lot of post-it notes.
Yeah. Because the data, for us, the data's sitting in all different kind of places. So the chances of that happening look quite high, but they're not, because we're in close communication with each other. Well, we're not a massive team anyway. But once we've actually got all our data in one place, it will become the responsibility of one set of people, just make it easier.
Right, okay. Well, it's good to know that the post-it note hasn't lost its relevance.
Or the water cooler.
Absolutely.
There's always a place.
There's always a place. Rightio. So we've had a question come in from Lee. We've got about 5 minutes left, so this will be our last audience question before I'm going to get your final thoughts on the future direction of personalisation. So Lee would like to know, do the panel think that investing in a personalisation strategy can sometimes be at the expense of optimising the core customer experience?
I have to disagree with that. It has to be the core experience first. Personalisation has to come after that. Otherwise, you're building a house on very weak foundations.
Right. Okay.
I think it's getting the infrastructure right first, isn't it? So core has to be main, and then you're building on and adding on nice to haves after that, which will just incrementally build your business. But you've got to have that structure there for the core.
Right. Okay.
And that's not devaluing personalisation in any way. No. That's just, in terms of logic, you have to get that core journey right.
3 in a row.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff.
We're all in agreement.
Right. I think we've got time just for one last audience question. And it's from Jane, and she's actually just thanking us for our informative discussion. So thanks, panel. Right, last question then. So we've spoken about where personalisation is coming from, what the challenges are, what has the most impact currently, and how you might be evolving your strategy. But where do you think the future of personalisation lies? And I'm going to put that to you, Finn, firstly.
I knew I was going to get that one.
You're further down the road, you see.
I think it's all about the data and the maths behind it. And if we are going to get to that point where we are personalising on a one-to-one basis, we have to be comfortable enough to pass it over to an automated system. We have to be comfortable enough to say that a campaign isn't going to be seen by every single person that comes onto the website. And I think that's the journey that we have to go down now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you just nicked my answer because mine was data. So it's right.
I can see it on your papers.
Yeah, so it's data. Very definitely, and how you use that,
Right.
And not getting too complicated and not taking it too far.
Right. Ross, what do you think?
Certainly the data plays an important part. I think, you've got to build on those foundations, but I think you've also got to look at being able to still work towards delivering that relevant customer experience across the different channels, and the ability to connect those all those bits up together is going to be vital for businesses, because as days goes by, there'll be new channels that come that we haven't even thought of, that we're going to have the way in which we can easily pull those channel capabilities into whatever technologies that we're utilising.
Right. Of course. But just summarising today's discussion, it certainly seems that as fashion retailing continues to become increasingly competitive, having a robust personalisation strategy is going to be essential if you're to stay ahead of the competition and win share of wallet. So interesting discussion today. So thank you to our expert panel. We've run out of time for today's conversation. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Please do head online to drapersonline.com for our upcoming personalisation report in association with Sailthru. Also, I'd like to tell you that if you would like to watch today's session again, you can watch on demand, and we will be communicating that out to you. Please do also share the link with colleagues within your teams who might be interested too, because as you would have seen, there have been lots of interesting insights today. So thank you to Ross, Erica and Finn, and thank you and goodbye.